But yo, I mean, Phil, this is a man, right?
Yeah.
All season long. This man was man, watching the football, man. How about that? How about that, man? Yo, I don't even have my shirt here. Then, cool.
Well, this was a hard season for your club.
Oh Lord, have mercy. I don't even know where you went dragged out from.
You know.
Yeah, back to them. Look, anyhow, good evening, man. Good evening.
Oh! I didn't even realize that the clock had count down. I didn't even realize that. Anyway, but as we clock countdown, hey everybody, how we doing? Welcome to another episode of The Living Room. You're here with myself, Andre, and my two good friends, Philip and Mark. As usual, we just like to have good old Caribbean conversation, and sometimes we digress a bit from the Caribbean as well. Let me just make sure you shouldn't cut it. Anyway, but welcome. Tag a few friends, get them into the conversation. Tag at least 20 or so, let them come in. Hey, if this is your first time on the UNDB Global platform, whether you are on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you are, hit follow, hit like, just follow us and you can be part of the conversations going forward. Good to have you. How are we doing, guys?
We
Yeah,
was
doing good.
with that shirt playing scream, man.
No, Carbon in morning to show what a good friend I am. I'm in black today just to support you. To support you, you
man.
know.
I see
hear you.
he's in the red room today as well.
Yeah, man. Just like change the scenery for me, man. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
This like streaming thing ain't easy. You're pulling up and pulling down and pulling up and pulling down all the time. Is yo.
Yeah. I get how that is going too. I
man.
decided to do a little bit as well.
But yeah, I am my red room. You know, my team who also plays in red. You
In
know,
red, that's what I thought. Yeah.
My
And
man
mine
there
obviously in blue.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not complaining. Final day of the Premier League season. You know,
Final day of the
Spurs are in Champions League next week. Next year. I feel like next week. we will see. We will see whether that place has been wasted come September. You know, which it usually is on Tottenham anyway. There's no point them being in the Champions League, only taking a place that other quality teams.
And a credible
You know what I'm
teams to
saying,
have.
Phil? You know what I'm saying? There's no point Spurs finishing fourth. They could have even had a bite today and let me get the
Clearly, Phil, since last week, Mark has become a wine connoisseur. You know, bit of sour grapes. I don't know if he has some Riesling there or you have there some German Riesling or
I don't mind you, man. I
because
don't
the
mind
grapes there well sour, man.
the
Well
thing
sour.
is,
Good
right,
vintage.
the thing is,
Good
right,
vintage
Phil,
you got there.
all season long, all this match. No.
Not checking for the football.
I'm not watching any football. I'm not checking any football. No. I haven't got time for that. I haven't got time.
Believe it or not, today was the first game of football that I watched for the entire season. I took a break
tune
off
in.
of football this year. Yeah. You take a little break off of football.
You watch City versus Villa as well?
Yeah,
Or
well,
just
you know,
focus on-
no, I just got a thing. So it was between, I guess the games that they showed today was the games at the bottom, and then the City Villa, but it was more the Liverpool game.
Liverpool. Okay.
I was more the Liverpool game.
Liverpool Wolves.
So it was interesting, that Liverpool game, and going back and forth between that and the Man City game. So I was there and I was watching. He barely get forth. Hey, the record books will not show barely. There's no such thing, Chesterfield, called barely in the league table. So that's all right.
Well,
However we get there, we get there.
We see it as that, Chesterfield. I agree with you.
But there will be lots of stories to show how Spurs clawed that back. I think at one point, if I'm not mistaken, Arsenal would have been like 9 points ahead of Spurs at some point during the season or something like that. So, but I don't want to rub it in. Who won the game, Adrian?
Keep rubbing in, man.
Spurs got a 4-0, man. 5-0, sorry, 5. And Arsenal, we got what, 5-1? Today,
we always got to concede one. So
yeah. So it's all good.
5-1, man. But anyhow, you got your place. You got your fourth place. So I'm very bitter about it. That's the truth, because I felt we let ourselves down badly, and But we'll be back next year, man. We'll be back next year to fight hard.
Don't lick your wounds. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
Wait, Phil, what happened to my
Thank you,
young
Doobie
man,
Dan. Doobie Dan is another Arsenal man. There, he's a
man?
so
What
I
you
know
gonna
this
tell he suffer? Don't bother
because
to
he's a good
congratulate him.
sport.
Don't
He's a good
congratulate him.
sport.
Don't
You know.
congratulate him.
He's not eating of sour grapes as you are. He's
eat
not
my
drowning in
sour
his sorrows.
I can eat my sour
You know.
grapes, man. Because
Yes, sour grapes.
I
These things.
just feel,
These things happen. These things happen.
the only good thing that happened to the Spurs this season is that Son get to share the Golden Boot, and he had a fantastic season.
He well deserved to share the golden boot.
Such a
Yeah,
good player. Yeah.
he had
Yeah,
a really
man.
good thing. But as usual, Spurs now everybody biting the tongue waiting to see the clear out because that's all it is. Because once again, as a Spurs fan, you can't help watching. You gotta feel bad keep watching Kyle Walker. They're going receiving trophies every 5 minutes. You gotta feel bad when you see Kyle Walker walking out there all the time. So you know what I mean. So
Kyle Walker worked out a long time ago that if I stand here at Tottenham, there's no.
They got nothing for me.
I will never win anything here, even if I
get
play
it
the last
north.
50.
well, to be fair, we would say thank him for his service. It's better than what happens over across the road where everybody really just come there for a paycheck.
We have won. I have to look. I don't even have my script here with me, but
Yeah, you gotta remind them.
Arsenal has won more trophies in the last 10 years.
This is true. This is true. This is
Won
not.
probably in my lifetime.
This is true. So one wonders then why do you contribute to the plane that flies over the Emirates every year saying manager out,
come on.
manager.
Man, come on.
Manager out. Because I feel you contribute to that airplane. Every year, I feel you contribute to that airplane. Because it coincides with your morning. So I have a feeling. But anyhow.
I don't mind you. Look, Phil, how was my boy this season, man? 'Cause his team won the Premier League. He celebrating, Miles?
Sort of. I
Miles on
think the
cricket
thing
now,
with Miles
man.
because he had a cricket game today. They won today.
Aye.
It was I had a book with me. I didn't even open the book. It was actually an exciting game.
You're coaching here cricket now, no?
Yeah, of course.
I just
Volleyball,
Of course.
cricket,
Yeah.
football.
What? So he's a batsman or he's a bowler or what?
He seems to be leaning towards bowling a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Although he's a decent batsman as well.
Okay.
He didn't
He's a
get any
slow
wickets.
bowler like you.
He got a little bit of pace.
Yeah.
But you're not coaching.
I just focus on line and length. I go on the line
and length.
and length.
Jeez.
And if you can add the pace, add the pace.
Wow. Well, fair enough. It's a good call. I know you are fairly I know you are fairly up there when it comes to the coaching realm,
Yeah.
And Angela here talking about coaching in the culinary too.
Fancy you should say that. 'Cause that-
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what you cook up today, man? 'Cause I saw you sent through some stuff there that looked rather interesting.
Well, today it was another Sunday, another baked rice. And today I was telling my aunt about, she asked me what I was baking today. I was just chatting with my aunt down in London.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her I can do this baked rice.
Nah, you
And
just
it's everything
rice.
into one pot. And she was like, really? I said, yeah. She said, oh, that's a really good idea because that saves energy, that saves washing up. It's only in the oven once. You don't have to have you don't have to be cooking rice on the stove top and so on. I thought actually that's a good thing. And the other thing is that I went into my fridge and looked for stuff that given another 2 days would be in the bin. And just pick the things I knew would go well in this rice. So what we have here, we have red onions, we have mushrooms, we have asparagus, we have some tomatoes, we have some carrots, and we have some spring onions.
Barry is raising an eyebrow. I don't know if you can see him.
No, I am just.
So this is how you go. You start off,
Flabbergasted.
you get everything together in your baking tray, add a bit of oil and salt, and a bit of seasoning if you want, and butter, and then a bit of butter, and you just stir it up together in your baking tray that you're going to use. Right? But enough colors. If you cook in rice and it just plain white, forget that. Just buy rice in the bag.
This is
Just buy rice in the bag.
This is basmati rice, so you don't pre-cook the rice or anything before you put it in the
No,
oven.
no, you don't have to pre-cook it or anything.
All
This
right.
is
Okay.
long grain rice.
Okay.
I wouldn't
Oh,
try
wow.
it with basmati because basmati can become really hard when it.
Basmati is a skill to cook, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I prefer to cook basmati on the stove top. This is just long grain rice.
Okay.
So you get all that stuff. And wash your rice before as well. It's always best to wash your rice. Mix it all up together. So that's garlic, your asparagus, spring onions, red onions, carrots, any veg goes. Anything you want. If you want to put in a little bit of ginger as well, add that in. So if you go to the next picture, I'll show you where it goes next.
Oh Lord have mercy. Go ahead.
I just allow my man to
So-
do this.
So this is actually the end result. So what you do is you have all that in, and as much rice as you put in, same measure of water. So I use 1 cup of rice there. So 1 cup of water.
Okay.
So you mix all the veg and the rice together, then pour the water over and flatten it down. And then you pack chicken, and it could be any chicken pieces. I use wings today, that's what I had. Seasoned those before, and I seasoned them with a bit of paprika, bit of turmeric, bit of salt, black pepper, bit of oil on top of them, and just pack them on top of the rice so you can't see any rice. And mushrooms, I dotted those in between as well. Just pack them in.
And then shove it in the oven.
Cover it, shove it in the oven, cover it over. Make sure you cover it for an hour. Keep it covered for an hour.
Oh,
Then you just open it. Yeah. Open it. And then at the end, just leave it for another 15 minutes. And also what I do is when I'm leaving it unopened, I just get a bit of sugar and a bit of water, bit of black pepper, a little bit of oil, stir that
listen to
together,
the man.
and glaze it over the chicken.
Man, you've stunned Barrett into silence.
No, I just let the man get out his
And then when everything comes out,
I ain't want nobody said I behaving bad or anything.
when everything
like that,
comes
right?
out,
So
you
I just
have,
let him
you
get
have
What's
your
on-
rice,
what's
you
on
have
the
your
right there?
chicken, then put a little salad with it, made a little salad dressing with balsamic, olive oil, salad cream,
Wow.
little bit of sugar, black pepper as well. And that is your Sunday meal.
No, I hear you talking
Just
about
with
this
the
now
oven on.
for a little while, but now that I see how it is constructed, because
Yeah.
I use that term deliberately.
Yeah.
Oh, it is built.
Absolutely.
So
Well, it is.
Good.
it
When
turned
you
into
cooking when you cooking this sort of food,
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
constructed, it is built.
Yeah,
It's all
man.
engineering. It's engineering. It is art. It's about measurement. It's about getting the timing right. It's about understanding the materials that you're using.
I almost reluctantly want to say. I know we got a little get together coming up. I almost reluctantly want to say. I don't say it.
Hey, my man, you see what you want to say?
I almost reluctantly want to say the man can serve up a bit rice when we get together. Or
If y'all want. It is an easy meal to prepare. It saves energy. It tastes really good.
okay,
Because imagine by the time all that is finished, all the juice from the chicken and the seasonings just soak in the rice. So your rice ain't just picking up water.
yeah.
The rice picking up all
the flavors going down
all
inside.
the flavors. Yeah,
Wow,
all the flavors
wow,
just dripping
wow,
in.
Wow, got you.
And the rice it don't come out hard or too soft, and it's just this perfect
All right.
texture
I can
and
try.
taste.
I can.
And then you got all the veg
I'm
inside there. Sometimes I put in spinach as well.
I'm
and lentils.
sure it's a fantastic dish, right? But man, Philip is kind of oversell. He tastes sometimes, but I'm sure
I?
it looks good.
To be
It
honest,
is good.
I think that is false because I usually undersell things.
yeah, the man said
This
he's
one I'm
overselling.
giving
No,
it.
I don't think you understand.
sufficient-
You fulfill.
I am giving this
I don't think
sufficient
so.
sell. I'm giving it the sell it deserves.
You said it. It's like, all right.
There's just so many aspects to it. It's healthy, it tastes good, it's easy
Efficient.
to prepare, it's
Good use of
efficient,
resources, man.
it's good use of resources. You look in your fridge, you see, all right, what are you working with today? What is here?
Okay.
I won't call it a
Hello.
pillow, but I feel that's doing
It's not really a pillow. Pillow is the is the opposite direction of pillow, sort of.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
Right.
We can call it bait rice for now.
it is baked rice. Yeah,
Sound like a nickname to me.
because you,
Well, Larry.
I would take it.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Whoa.
Who is this here now?
Oh shoot, okay.
Don't knock it. Listen,
Aye,
listen. I ain't knocking
man.
it.
Straight
I
at
ain't, I ain't knocking it.
Thank you, Nicole.
I have stayed in the middle of the line. Of course, I would try it. I ain't knocking it, Mrs.
You
Robinson.
listen carefully.
Easy,
You listen
easy.
very carefully to how it was constructed, right?
Yeah, I was just listening. You know.
I would even actually, instead of y'all just waiting on me to serve it up, I invite you to
To try a thing.
try it. Try it
I
at
can
home.
get a try, man.
It
I
is
can
so
get a
simple. Just all you have to remember is the same quantity of rice to water, 1-to-1 ratio.
Okay.
Opposite if you are boiling it on the stove top is 1 to 2.
And an hour in the oven.
Hour in the oven with your meat on top. Or as my vegetarian friends would say, spoil it with the meat.
We spoiling
Right.
it. We don't mind that.
Yeah, spoil it with the meat.
We don't mind that.
It looks great. Miss Robinson is just saying, it looks great. That's fantastic. Yeah, you know, that's fantastic.
But
All right, where
Barra-
y'all guys get to this week, man?
Yeah, but you know what it's like, man. It was. What was the highlight of this week, man?
Any more
usual-
curb analysis?
Any more? What?
Curb analysis.
Gone to Parliament. Fine.
I got asked for a statement this week. I got asked for a statement in a press release.
See that,
So,
you know?
go for it.
See
No,
that,
man.
you know?
That can take a little while before it works its way through. So don't that's nothing for you to worry about, Phil, man.
Okay,
Don't
good,
listen
good.
to Barra.
You know this Tesla hiking prices in London, so you good.
Well, that is true too.
this
Y'all can pay.
Tesla hike prices hike in London, so
Can
Yeah,
pay down there,
yeah.
right? So?
True.
that seems to
man.
be the case. That seems to be
Queens.
the case when it comes
Close to the
Saudi
Queen,
Arabia.
man.
Nah, of
Close to the
course,
Queen.
man. If you want to try anything, try it in London. Then got
So
down there.
speaking of the Queen, y'all got your bunting and thing ready for next weekend?
Not yet,
No.
but I'm planning to celebrate.
Okay. Well, you putting up some red, white, and blue?
I don't know yet if I can put up. I don't think I can put up anything. To be honest, no. I'm not going to.
You like your ticket? Oh, I ain't putting that name.
I was just trying to be politically safe.
No, man, you
Yeah,
ain't gotta be
this is a
politically
safe
safe.
space.
It's just we.
I got a couple little flags. You know, I got
You got
a
little
couple
flags?
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
all right. Look, she's done well. So was it
I
70
know that
years
you.
or
70
What about you,
years.
though? What about you, Barra? You
I vetoed that. I vetoed that.
Oh, you mean you veto it? What happened?
No. We ain't doing a blue, no red, white, and blue down here. No.
Okay.
We would chill out. We would thing, but we ain't doing that.
Now you're getting 2 days off. You could
Absolutely.
at least
Give something back.
give something back, man. Come on.
Cut
now.
a sandwich, eat a scone,
Gives-
do something.
Oh, I had a scone this morning, so there's no
Wow,
problem.
you start early then.
You start early. That's true.
Clotted cream.
I know. I clotted cream. Just the name alone, I can't bring myself to eat that, man. It's just the
Yeah.
word clotted. It sounds
Clotted.
wrong.
Yeah.
It just sounds wrong.
Yeah, a bit of clotted cream and some jam is good, man.
No.
Yeah. Sounds though you know this leading to heart problems. You
Yeah,
hear the cough.
it's just the word clotted. It just get me every time
Clotted
I hear it.
arteries.
Yeah, just every time I hear clotted, I'd be like clotted cream. That just sounds wrong, man.
Don't
I
need
can't
it.
eat that.
Don't need it.
So no, I just go with a little bit of normal butter, man. Normal butter. And I chilling and stuff. But no, it's 70 years. The Queen has done well. One cannot argue that.
No.
Yeah.
So compared to her children, she's never in the news for anything.
It's true.
But her children supplies all the news that you could ever want. So
You don't need any more.
no, exactly. So she's
Yeah.
done well, and don't get me wrong, it is to be celebrated. To be fair, I won't dispute that. But
I guess in fairness, or to her children, she was sort of thrown into that position very early in her life. What was she?
Yeah,
in
yeah,
her
when her father
23
died.
or so.
25, I think, or
25.
maybe she was 25 when she got married, something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
early, very early.
So very early in her life. So she just had no opportunity to be a tabloid subject.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then there's also the time as well. I think at the time when she became queen, people still in that particular position still held fast to protocol and what was required.
Yeah.
Obviously, the kids come into a different era, a media
Except-
age.
Except
For the throne.
Except Prince Philip, actually. I suspect as a young man, if there was the internet and tabloids, he probably would have
Oh Lord.
been all over it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even because the tabloid era was kind of now coming in too.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think it took a while to catch up with him.
Yeah.
But I think people still respected and allowed him to be him without finding too much scandal, because he said a
much
lot of
scandal
things
on him.
along the way
Yeah.
that a lot of things could be scandalized. If you were to say them today, there'd be
Oh, yeah.
a lot of stuff on him.
True.
But but her kids and grandkids obviously come into a different era, as well as I think while people have respect for the institution, I don't think people are afraid to print and write and speak about the institution in the way that perhaps they were some time ago. So that's the thing.
Yeah, man, it's so true. Going back to that conversation of food, though, I haven't seen anything from your garden lately, though, Barra. How things coming along, man?
Things are coming along fantastic. I just don't want to, don't want the fellas to jealous me or anything like that. You know?
Oh, shoot.
Okay.
Things coming along, man. I can shoot y'all a picture. The lettuce is looking good. It's firming up. I think it got another week and a half or two before I get a head off. And we'll see how that goes. But I will share that with you fellas, man.
So you're looking to harvest just in time for the Jubilee?
Just the wrong. I might pick a little something from
Jubilee
the garden
salad.
for the Jubilee.
Or
Yeah.
cucumber and lettuce sandwich.
But it's coming along.
Watercress.
It's Agrifest in Barbados. So who knows? I might send something down, Angela. I might send something down.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Y'all pick it young and send it down.
Now,
But yeah.
I got
It's
a
going good.
fungus dip on my apple tree, man, that caused me bare problems, yeah. I only discovered it this week.
It's under the leaf.
Yeah, the leaves is curl. And you hold it, you
Okay.
see they got all this fungus
Black.
underneath. It's
black
kind of
fungus.
grayish color. Apparently
Okay.
ants is carry around this thing, man. They got all my leaves just dying off. Crazy.
Right.
So
What does happen?
yeah, man. Not that you've had any experience of that kind of stuff, but
Oh no, man. Yeah, man. My no. The one thing that I find that for whatever reason I didn't see them push out the ground yet is the peppers. The peppers taking long to push out the ground, man. The hot peppers. I ain't know what's going on there with them.
Well, hot peppers, not
Yeah.
not sweet peppers. Okay.
I got sweet peppers too. Them out. Them
Sweet
coming
peppers
out
will
now.
grow quick. Yeah.
Them growing out now, but it's the hot peppers that for whatever reason I like. When it coming up, well,
Don't add fertilizer.
No. I've learned from you guys, so I won't do that. I would do that.
Easy
Oh,
to
shoot.
feel. Go easy, man.
Pictures,
supermarket.
man. I had pictures all the time, man. Just to feel you wasn't watching.
Yeah, I gotta give that one, Chester. He showed some little sprouts a few weeks ago. But,
Yeah, sprout, man. I good, man. I can show. My lettuce huge now, man. I can show you. And then the flower garden as well is going well. As well. Yeah, man. The perennials are out and doing well, and you know me. I like to be in the garden, man. I find it a bit therapeutic when you're outside in the garden and stuff on a Saturday or Sunday morning or something. Like that.
It's good, I find when I come home from work, sometimes I just go straight outside because just go get my thoughts together and just de-stress a little bit. It's going to pull some weeds or see what's going on and
Yeah,
just
man. I like it.
spend that
Was
energy
this
there.
question from Shell?
So let's asking about the latest on the UK to Rwanda saga. So of course the UK government looking to deport people to Rwanda. It's gone a little bit quiet, if I'm honest, because the Home Secretary, came up with a blaze about 5 or 6 weeks ago around this policy on deporting migrants who enter the UK illegally to Rwanda. But that has not stopped migrants from entering the UK because, as the summer season kicks around and kicks off, more people are coming across the channel still.
And had good weather too the last couple of weeks.
The government has not got a handle on this situation at all. So it's the Rwanda aspect of the conversation has gone a little bit quiet, but the overall commentary around migrants coming across the channel hasn't gone anywhere, actually.
Well, the Rwanda president did say this week that he is expecting 50 or so UK migrants to be in Rwanda by the end of this month. So that's a week from now. So things might be happening, it's just not in the news. But if he's saying that, I don't know what's the case that's going to happen. But it's in the courts here, though. So I guess it'd be interesting to see what happens there where that's concerned.
I would say one of the positive things of this is to hear the UK government actually talking up Rwanda. You know, historically people would say Rwanda, no, that's like one of the most dangerous places on the earth.
But the UK government themselves have said that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Not so long ago.
About 2 months before this thing become public.
of course, yeah. But now everybody's talking about they have a thriving economy. They're growing. You know, it has space for growing population, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I haven't heard the Rwandan side of the conversation as to why they're allowing this, but clearly there's an economic reason there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
in
they're
some
they're
form
going to
or
get paid
fashion.
lots of sterling to do it.
But of course. But let's be honest. If the whole reason for saying and doing this is to try to stop people from coming,
No, that's
if
what
that's the
government-
reason that if and that's what they've said. So if that's your reason, one says, well, why Rwanda? Why you trying to find a relationship with the United States and send them over there, someplace that we all know is a huge and big economy, but you send it for somewhere that has a connotation, but now trying to talk it up now that people has
It's
pushed back
narrative.
on it,
Yep.
right? But the reason why you're playing this angle is to dissuade people from coming.
Yeah,
Because hey, you're not going to be in the UK, you're going to go to
going to
Rwanda.
Rwanda.
And that's the reason why they're doing it. But now that people push back, people in the UK, now they're saying, but why you... And they're almost doing a reverse psychology on you, like, oh, y'all sound disgusting to be talking down Rwanda like that. What's wrong with y'all? Rwanda is a thriving place. When the same government, 2 or 3 weeks prior to the announcement of the policy, did say the same thing about Rwanda as well.
Yeah,
Now, that's not to say, of most of the African countries, Rwanda is on the up and up. And Kagame has done some great things over the last few years within Rwanda. But it's still got a long way to go.
yeah, of course it does.
Yeah, and I think people will hold the government to account on this one because they've gone very strong with this is about breaking up the gangs,
The smuggling
and
rings.
smuggling rings. They've gone very strong on that as the objective of the policy. So if that does not materialize, as we go through the summer, the numbers are still high. There's going to be a lot of questions to be asked around, well, actually, what is this policy doing and how effective is it? Because I think that's still yet to play out, though. But it's a good question there, Shell. Thank you.
That's going to go on for quite some time. As things now because it obviously went quiet a bit because they tried to bring it out in the middle of the war with Ukraine and what have you. But now the news is not as saturated with the war. It's now coming back into the news again, so there's some attention being paid on it. But it'd be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting to see. But for me, this week I've still fallen up quite a lot on this stuff going on in Trinidad and the SAGBA report. Last week we did our show looking at abuse in care homes,
yeah.
the juvenile and penal system, and we looked at Barbados and Trinidad. But I keep this one in Trinidad that rumbling on because obviously there's a report that came out recently, but then there's also a report that has been like 25 years ago, the SAGBA report.
Yep.
And that report, it seemed to have been covered up in Parliament and what have you, even though allegations of sexual abuse and physical abuse and pedophile rings and all kinds of stuff allegations were laid, the report seemed to have just disappeared. But I think the sad thing for me, though, what's happening in Trinidad, and hopefully my Trini friends can help me out, not listening, is so the focus has been shifted from helping the kids to being one of a political nature and just broadsiding each other. UNC this, PNM this, all kinds of stuff. They're now linking it to a case where around the same time when they report a young boy was drowned in a pool at a party and what have you, and all that kind of stuff. Nothing to do with the report, but they're now bringing that up to kind of defame, say, the PNM. No, I ain't a Trini, so I ain't caring nothing about UNC and PNM and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that's annoying is how quickly politics have come into it and the focus have been removed from the children, the people who need the help the most.
Yeah.
And then how quickly everyone just gone into their camps, and these are supporters now, not the politicians, gone into their camps, despite claiming to have the kids at heart. Clearly, that's not the case. Now it's going into he say, she say, you do, who this, all this kind of stuff in the various camps, and it just hit home on some conversations that we've been having before about why, as a Caribbean, we kind of never really move forward in certain things.
Oh man.
Because everything just turns into this tribal political party nonsense, and then everyone gets into their camp. And quite frankly, the focus, irrespective of party, irrespective of who you support, irrespective of who is in government at any given point in time, the focus should be on the children, the kids, and the issue at hand. And that's where, it's a bit annoying watching that whole saga unfold. I'm trying to get my hands on this report too, but I ain't get it yet. But
Somebody out there would have.
I can get it too. I can get it too because a lot of reports. I've just been following that up and following what's been happening there, as well. It's quite interesting, quite sad as well, the way how the conversation is going, but interesting to follow nonetheless.
I think the point you make about how quick we are to jump into tribes, and and don't try to be objective and find a solution that is the right solution. We kind of saw some of that a little bit in the conversation last week too, where people almost feel as though just because there is a sitting minister or a government that you can't ask probing questions or ask for transparency or hold people to account. And it feels as though just because you ask those questions or something wrong with you criticizing the government, you shouldn't be doing that. But unless somebody asks the questions, how are you supposed to get over these issues and move on as a society? Because ultimately, that show last week was really, really hard, to be honest. It was really, really difficult. And some of the things that we were kind of uncovering was just painful. But you've got to ask the questions. And
you've got to hold people to account.
Absolutely. And this is not about, well, that government was in power or this government is in power. And too often, as soon as you ask the question, that's where people retreat to. Who was in power? And then suddenly, the two sides, or how many other sides there are in the country, can't seem to realize actually there is an issue here that we all collectively need to work towards a solution on, as opposed to trying to blame that party over there for everything that happened. And it just doesn't move us forward. And that's the sad reality of where we are.
I think sometimes as human beings, we react more to what we want to be the truth rather than what is the truth, right? Or what are the facts? And that can happen especially in a place where you probably have a lack of capacity or a sense that you don't have as much influence and power in society. Therefore, your behaviors tend to drift towards what you want to be. And what we want to be true is that, our ministers and our politicians are full of integrity, are honest, are working well, can be trusted. Those are the things that we want to be true, right? Therefore, we will spend more time acting and hoping and responding in a way that leans towards that truth, as opposed to we actually might need to spend some energy doubting, probing, asking questions, and dealing with some hard realities of where we are as a people.
But we don't seem to
has to be done.
We don't like that at all.
No, we don't. And I think those in power actually play on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. And that's the whole problem. I mean, how to watch last week's show, if anybody would have watched last week's show, and if you haven't, I implore you to go have a look at it. And deduce potentially that it was being a bit, political or what have you. But the fact of the matter is politicians who are doing the probe. It's politicians who put the teams in place to look at. So when you take a look at how it's being dealt with, who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to talk about? Who are you going to hold accountable? And we just seem to be unable to hold those whom we support to account. We just and it is really interesting to watch. And sometimes even in a case like this, it seems like no matter how bad the news is, we seem unable to hold them to account.
But I think that also varies according to island and nation in the Caribbean. Because I
Okay.
think, this whole uncovering of what's been happening in Trinidad, as sad as it is, they're having the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And they are very vocal about talking around what the politics of these situations are looking like. And even though people might go into their camps, they are talking about it. They're bringing it onto the table and they're asking questions. I think sometimes, particularly in our home nation of Barbados, we don't always like to lean into those things, and we don't always like to probe into those things because it can be a little bit uncomfortable and it feels as though, well, you shouldn't be criticizing. But actually,
Well,
you should. If things aren't where they need to be, you should criticize, actually.
the favorite Bajan saying is always wait and see. Let me wait and see.
Let me wait and see. You
We
got
don't,
that one right.
or the thing that we always like to fall back in is you don't know all the facts. So if you don't know all the facts, therefore you shouldn't comment on it because you don't know all the facts. Like, when are you ever going to know all the facts? So you comment based on what you know and what you see in public domain, and you probe and you ask for more. But for sure in Barbados, our whole thing is always wait and see. Oh, but he didn't in that portfolio for too long. Let me
Give
wait
me a
and see what
chance.
he can do. Let me give a chance. Let me wait and see. What people asking for you to resign? What people asking you to resign? Because he preside over one investigation and 2 weeks prior come out and say nothing to see here. Move along. 2 weeks later, two girls run away now. Oh, we need an investigation. Huh? Clearly, you're not the right man for the job. Move on.
It's
But
true.
we don't. No. Wait and see. Give a chance. Well, I wonder who gave the children a chance, because all of a sudden the whole conversation gone quiet.
It's true. It's true. And I mean, as we're talking about Barbados, let me dwell there for a moment because there's a real there's a real silence around Barbados at the moment. I don't know if you guys kind of realize it. And the thing that I was kind of thinking about recently, when we moved to Republic status last November, I remember there was a lot of conversation about, we're going to move next to
Constitutional Commission. Where
constitutional
is it?
review, and we're going to make sure that people have a say.
Hasn't started yet.
And I was like, okay, that's fine, because at that point in time, it felt as though, yeah, that's a good thing to do. We definitely need that. Hasn't happened. But I was really intrigued by the press conference yesterday with the Prime Minister. And I think she was saying something about one of the things that she wants to leave behind is a new vaccine manufacturing facility. And I was sitting here thinking to myself, but here we go, it's something else to do. But we're not delivering on the things that we've already committed to. And it just felt like more stuff on top of more stuff, but you can't really see where the progress is in the things that we've already committed to. And I just felt a little bit tired.
Again, it's because we as a country, we wait
You're
and
asking the
see.
question. Wait and
Giving
see.
people a chance.
Wait and see. Wait and see.
Yeah.
Just like the 9,000 or 8,000 houses in how much of a year? Wait, give a chance. You only a year in and ain't doing that yet, but still give a chance. You still
Wait
got
and
some
see.
years to go.
Wait
Wait
and
and
see.
see.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And people just take advantage of that. But we say quite a lot, on this show, irrespective of who we might have in and what conversation we might be having. But we need to be probing. And then you're right. At least in Trinidad, they're always probing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They never dull it
Absolutely.
in Trinidad and Tobago. So they're always probing. But certainly, I could say when I look at Barbados, you just really don't see that happening. You
No.
just really don't see that
No.
happening, unfortunately.
I saw something else that I think might have caught your attention. I see Mangrove was in the news this week, man. Mangrove in
Or there's
Barbados.
the solar.
Yeah. Photovoltaic.
Yeah.
Which took me a little bit by surprise.
Yeah,
I didn't see that one. Was it
I haven't
news
looked
there?
into that one heavily, actually. Was the case there?
Well, the government is looking to kind of make the place a lot more sustainable and utilize green energy. So they're going to have this big photovoltaic farm in Mangrove, of all places, which has been identified. So they signed a memorandum of understanding last week.
Okay.
But the thing that really caught my attention when I was reading the article is it said something along the lines of no study has been conducted. They have to do a study, right? But I was asking myself, so how you identify a location and you're doing a study without them two things don't add up? And then the company that promoting it don't have a license. So how you can do a study? You don't know if this location
So
is,
you're here celebrating.
yeah. You don't know what the ground conditions are like for this thing that you want to build. You don't know what you're going to discover. You don't know how people in the community might actually reject this thing. But you signing an MOU to say this is what we can do. The company don't have no license. It just felt a little bit back to front to me. And of course, because it
Smoke
had
and
mangrove,
mirrors.
smoke and mirrors, you're probably around there.
Smoke and mirrors.
Because it had mangrove in it, I kind of lean in a little bit because, of course, we come from mangrove. So I was like, okay, let me see what this here going. Oh.
So is the idea to
mirrors.
build a solar farm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much. To kind of support the government's drive towards reducing our energy consumption from
Yeah,
And our dependence on fossil.
yeah, and I
fossil
think it's the
fuel.
right thing.
Yeah,
but
right
the,
thing.
It is
the,
good.
the approach just seems a little back to front because certainly you would do the study first to determine what locations. You will hone down the locations to a single location that makes sense. And then, of course, you want to be making sure you've identified the company who is best placed to do that. But it seems as though we've identified the company, find the location, and now we can do the study. And them things don't feel as though that's the right way. But hey, there might be somebody out there who might know a lot more about it.
Somebody might know a lot more about it. And
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But again, who's probing? And look, before there's a little focus on Barbados there for a sec. Who's doing the probing? Because I've said it before. There's this thing about freedom of speech in Barbados, and quite frankly, it does not exist. There's freedom of speech depending on what it is you're talking about. For the time that you have to question anything about anybody in authority, whether government or businesses, you are completely shut down.
Yes.
Either
yes.
threatened with lawsuits and put in court
And
and
they
all
like
this
to do
kind
that.
of
They
nonsense.
like to do that,
Barbados
man.
the lawyers love to send you some kind of letter, as if a lawyer letter could do you anything.
Cease and desist.
It's all kind of nonsense. Observing Barbados is really, 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 really interesting, and it probably is. It go back to how they get to the wait and see thing, because nobody really willing to challenge,
Wait and see,
and
man.
nobody can
Wait and
challenge. You could, but everybody's afraid of repercussions,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that with Barbados is concerned. You just even got to look at our media and see it as well. Our media is just riddled with kind of half stories, and in many cases non-stories, because they don't ever really delve into anything.
They're too
much.
afraid, man. People are
They
too afraid.
report on something but don't probe any questions.
It'd be interesting to look at other sort of countries with a similar demographic in terms of, the size, population, that sort of stuff, and see if you see those same cultural features.
I'm sure there are elements of it, but when I look across the Caribbean and look at social media and see who's blogging and who's live streaming
Even look
and
at
that kind
Tiny
of stuff,
Grenada.
man, listen, Barbados is nowhere near what's going on in some of those countries as far as people challenging
Yeah,
and
I
people
agree with
and
that.
people saying no and doing so openly. Now, again, I can't speak to if there are repercussions there. I'm sure in some cases maybe there are, but the fact of the matter is there are people who are actually speaking out. In Barbados, we just got all over social media is all these I just call them bot profiles, although you know what I mean, bots, these profiles that ain't got no friends, nothing at all, but they're commenting all over the place and that kind of stuff. Everybody hiding hiding and all kind of junk. But there's just so a lack of challenging and openly challenging and openly critiquing as well. And I use the word critiquing and not criticizing because it's two different things. That is, the lack of that, in my opinion, is also what's hurt in Barbados, along with the fact that everybody gets into these tribal things whenever you question anything.
Yeah. So
So
true.
that's the way how when I view that.
No, it's so true. You've been following the what is the Agri Summit down in Guyana?
Yeah, I've been not as closely. I can see some videos there that I gotta go back and watch. But yeah, I've been following it. But one of the things that just made me exclaim a little bit was when these leaders that come up with these statements.
Honestly, man.
Who said it? I'm trying to
Gaston
remember.
Brown, man.
Was it
Talking
Gaston?
about transport and free riders.
Oh yes. The leaders have indicated the need for cheaper transport across the region to get food up and down the islands. And when I hear these kind of statements from the leaders whenever they meet, right? I just look around and say,
Who they talking
who they
about?
talking to? Because them is the leaders, though. All of them got the power to
They're the
go
ones
back
who
and
make the
make this thing
decisions.
happen. But they're talking as if they're talking to this other entity that controls the region. Maybe there is that, we don't know. But they
Probably
speak
is.
as if there's this entity out there controlling the region, stopping them from doing these things. And like, you're like, who they talking to? I don't understand.
Man, look,
And that's saying that's so annoy me then.
listening to them can be so exhausting, honestly. And I think it was Keith Rowley that kind of summed it up when he said something like, "Look, I've heard this all before. You know, we've been talking about this all over again, and it's true. You go to these summits. The leaders talk about the same thing. So in this case, now it is agriculture and food security and transport and moving things around the region, all of which they have the control to do. You know, them is the
All
people that
of
making
which.
decisions that putting up the barriers. Anybody else but them. You know.
Nobody else. And some of these guys have been in power for how long?
Long.
Long. We named it St. Vincent, what 20 years?
Yep.
Like guy in Grenada, not Grenada, Mitchell, yeah. Been there for how long? And these guys been there for the longest while. Enough time for things to happen. And I don't think, and one of the things that they always then tend to say some things, these things take time. These things take time. Hey,
You said so 5 years ago, though.
5? Might be hearing these things this my days at UE. These things is 20 years old now, these kind of conversations.
Wow.
But the thing that I hope that people in the Caribbean are paying attention to is that this thing of taking time is a nonsense. And the reason, and I'll show you why it's a nonsense. During this time in COVID, how many emergency laws, how many laws were passed in order to make people comply?
It can be done.
Two-twos. All
Yep.
that happened is that you had a will and you saw the urgency and a need.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's a legacy that should stay from COVID, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Working at pace and getting things done. That's a legacy.
Exactly. You could work at pace if you perceive that there's a need and in the good of the public. So the question then says, what is stopping you guys as leaders from working at pace to do these things? And the answer is nothing is stopping you apart from your own local politics and farsight and nearsightedness.
You get the impression that they only think about it when they come together. That is the sad reality of it. And I don't mean to do our leaders a disservice, but when you look across the Caribbean and you hear this summit and they're saying, oh, you know what, we have a food import bill of $6 billion US a year across the region. You think to yourself, whoa, oh my goodness, that's a significant sum of money, you know? But y'all have known this for ages though, you know? And it just feels as though it is just more talk, more air. And now they're talking about, well, they want to reduce. What's the vision? They're saying vision 25 by 25. So they want to kind of reduce this import bill by 2025.
2025, yeah.
Which is, okay, that's 3 years from now though.
Yeah.
You know?
I've been reading this book here called The Power of Us by
Uh-huh.
a guy called author David Price. I haven't gotten very far in it, but there's something that I found very interesting. It's very American based. It's looking pretty much at the post-COVID USA and what's the status of it. And he identified these 6 things that he think are positive outcomes. I've been wondering, are these also potential outcomes for the Caribbean that will push towards better collaboration? And the first thing is a crisis of identity. So he talks about post-COVID, but also post-Trump era as well, where America now has this crisis of identity and a need to start to look for, okay, well, we thought we were this, but it looks as though we're not who we thought we were. You know, we're seeing behaviors come out because that's what culture is. Culture is actually behaviors that are exposed that tell you this is who you really are. So the first thing is a crisis of identity, and I wonder if there is also that crisis of identity in the Caribbean as we're coming out of COVID and different things.
Could
The
be.
second one is a sense of learned helplessness, which is, you think that you are invincible, and then suddenly something happens that makes you recognize you know what, on my own, as a nation, as an individual, and so on, I'm actually quite helpless. I actually really depend on links with other people. I really need community. The third one is the return of the artisan. So you guys are planting your crops and that. That's all right. So there's
Barry
that.
is a seasoned farmer.
Yeah, exactly. Small farmer. There's the return of the artisan, which is another thing. The opening of knowledge, and we talked a lot about that. The need to probe, but throughout this, suddenly everyone wanted to dig deeper into medical knowledge, into what's going on politically, what's happening in policy, international trade. Everyone wanted to dig in and was interested in digging into that sort of knowledge. The fifth thing is the dawn of scalable learning.
All right.
And that again is because we were all suddenly a whole set of online resources and teaching became available online during COVID. So that means, learning at scale now. There's so much resources out there. And the final one is this quest for self-determination, which I guess balances out the whole identity crisis. So I was thinking through those 6 things, I'm wondering, okay, this is his analysis of the US in this post-COVID, post-Trump era, going through these 6 things. And I'm wondering if we'll also see that sort of outcome for the Caribbean, where CARICOM goes that next step as well and recognizes we really need to evaluate who we are, right? We're definitely helpless on our own, and we really need to pull together more.
I think that's fair, to be honest. Looking at how the experience of the United Kingdom living here and how we are kind of navigating that space, a lot of those things sound very familiar.
Yeah.
I think the challenge with CARICOM is I never know who is doing all of that deep thinking away from the leaders, because we don't have visibility of that stuff, and that's really work needs to happen. You've got to have an army of people behind the scenes who are doing all of that heavy lifting in CARICOM,
and I don't doubt that they are.
They are, but you never know or you never see the outcomes of it. And I think that is part of the challenge in the region, that we only ever see the leaders on stage talking about what they want to do, signing all these communiques, but you don't see the work that happens behind the scene to address those 6 areas, because they sound familiar to me.
Yeah.
And I think
it's very difficult to measure.
You can't see the progress. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that 5th one that you talk about there around scalable learning, we seem so intent to try and get back to what learning was before COVID, that you're not taking enough time to actually realize, there was some fantastic...
What is it that we've developed?
There's some fantastic skills.
Yeah.
And there's some fantastic tech out there that can take our education to another level. But we just seem to want to retreat back to what we knew previously, and that loses the ability to be able to really scale what it is you need to do in terms of education. So it sounds very familiar, but I don't know how our leaders and the support mechanisms behind them are helping us to understand how we need to move forward and address those frailties.
There's that, but to me the main issue is, one of the things that when you're looking at to create change and what's not, is that sometimes you look for the lower hanging fruit.
Yeah.
The lower hanging fruit across the region is transportation. Easy. As far as the ability to move around. Easy lower hanging fruit. Easy, in my opinion. Remove, reduce, do something with all of them tariffs and taxes that cause people, that create barriers from people from moving around. Easy.
But you see, what the governments will then say to you is, but I still have to find that revenue from somewhere. So if I remove it off taxes from planes to enable the region, and everybody else in the region don't do it, it is not going to be equitable. And I still got to find that tax somewhere in my population.
Right. But again, the everybody else in the region don't do it shouldn't even be part of the conversation. Conversation. When I say that, I'm not saying that Barbados, easy for Barbados to do it, and this body don't do it, and Trinidad should do it, and Suriname and what have you. I'm thinking as a collective, that's low hanging fruit.
We agree to do it, and we just do it.
Right? As a collective, that's low hanging fruit. You do that, and you work with the airlines and with whoever, and it's easy to make that happen. and the different tourism boards and what have you then champion tourism across the region. To me, that is no, and that's where the replacement funds would come from, or at least not all of them, obviously, but that's where some of the buffer would come, because you're trying to build something, right? So that always seems to be the issue for me when I look at the governments, is that they never look at the low having fruit, and they never seem to implement it. Nothing ever seems to be implemented. If it is, I don't see it.
You ain't telling a lie there,
Right.
And I think Angela there in the chat is absolutely right, because we're trying to do too many things. You know,
Yeah.
that is a sad reality, because when you're trying to do all of these things and you don't try and focus your priorities, nothing gets done.
What it is that you're actually trying to do?
Yeah, nothing gets done. It's why
You
we
know.
live as a region so frustrated. Sorry.
No, she's right, because we just seem to be hitting at all kinds. The next week you can see a meeting now talking about digital. Then the next week you can see a meeting talking about the blue economy.
Yeah.
All of which are good things and right things. Don't get me wrong. The issue is not whether or not there are things that need to be done. The issue seems to be there's a lot of talk about a lot of things, and no one thing is ever really ever being done.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. And the issue about things taking time, in my opinion, is neither here nor there. It is wrong and it is misleading, considering a number of leaders across the region have been there for more than 5 years, some more than 10 and 15 years, some, whether or not they've been the actual leader for more or less than 5 years, have been around in politics and within positions of policy making and what have you for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the season of COVID is ones where you saw so much legislation across the region happening in days and weeks.
Emergency legislation, man. Bring it
Right.
forward.
So if
It
the
can be done.
urgency is there, it can be done. What is stopping it? The issue is that there seems to be no urgency, no political will, or no real common sense of the need of what working together actually is and what it looks like.
And I think this is such a fundamental time for our region, because this import bill thing, when you look now at the cost of living, which Miss Motley also touched on in her press conference yesterday. You look at the cost of living across the Caribbean region now, man, people are hurting. Look, I live here in the UK and I'm hurting because all of a sudden you just cannot buy the things that you were able to previously. And it is really, really hard, and people are feeling it. And it just feels as though the longer we carry on this rhetoric of trying to fix and not fixing, people are being squeezed more and more and more, and it is really damaging. And before you know, before too long, you've got this explosion of frustration in the population because people can only carry this for a certain time.
Yeah.
And the cost of living is hitting people. In fact, it would be good to hear from the guys in the chat. What are their thoughts around what they're seeing in terms of price increases and the like over the course of the last couple of weeks? Because I certainly have observed that, man, look, things cost a lot more now. Yeah. In fact, this week in the UK, they were saying inflation is running at 9% and anticipated to be almost double that by the end of the year.
By the end of the year. And
so that is crazy.
And it also, I was listening to, as a podcast listener, and that 9% is average overall, is actually more depending on where you are economically within
Absolutely.
the
You
system.
feel it more.
You feel it more, right? So there was a little test that was doing to show you what your real personal inflation is. And some of that had to do with if you bought a car recently, whether you have a hybrid or using diesel and what have you, then your actual inflation rate could actually be much more than what the average inflation rate is for the country. So that's a huge issue.
Man, look,
we change a few habits and what have you, but
so
I'll be honest.
What you doing differently, man?
It's just certain decisions. So when it comes to why put in the car and what have you, I still put in the same dollar amount, make it work. That's the case. So I don't like to fill up my car. It was the need to doing that. If it was putting in £40 before I put in £40, no, same thing, same dollar amount.
Okay, interesting.
And I'm making that work.
Man,
I know it's less fuel,
Oh yeah.
but I'm making that $40
But that's
work
what
in some where I went. So I
That's an
increasing my cost.
interesting approach. I went and fill up my vehicle the other day. It cost me £86. I thought he pump not working.
He thought we can stop. He look at-
Pump can't
he
be
thought
working.
you can see stuff floating,
£86.
but
I'm like, what? Yeah,
Wow.
no, yeah,
it's
but
crazy.
because there's a tendency that you might want to fill up, but some weeks you drive less than some, right? So what I tend to do is say, look, I do 40 pounds, so I put it in 40. But then if it's a week then that I don't drive as much, I might still go put in 40, but now that that put me closer to full than I was because I didn't do as much. So I try to don't put more dollar amount wise than I was than before.
So in terms of, does that mean that you have to change your traveling habits as well? To
Not
compensate?
necessarily. Look, one of the things that you know that we like to do as Bajans, right? So, I live in Mangrove. Listen, you used to drive to the gas station that literally 10 minutes at your road.
The curtains?
I mean,
Of course.
Whoa.
that's what we do. If you got a car, you should drive to the gas station.
That's like me living in Eagle Hall and driving to Roxy.
There you go. if you going for say,
Yeah.
and so it's just stuff like that. You just start doing. You just going to the corner shop there, your local scene, just walk out there, man.
It's a big change that we're trying to make now in transport policy, actually, where we're trying to encourage a lot of people to make those local journeys under a mile, either walk or cycle them, because in reality that is going to become the norm. You see, when you see me riding my bicycle on a Sunday, I just get ready for the future because I know down the line it will be the norm, because you can't keep driving to those locations that are just around the corner. Now, the difficulty there is that everybody's circumstances are different and people got different responsibilities and people's lives are complex. But you got to figure out what it is that's going to work for you and your family. And I certainly started to cycle a lot more because if I can save a trip, I'm happy with that, right?
Well, it might even go beyond what works for you and your family. It might be what works for you and your community as well.
Well, it will get there.
reality, yeah, I think it will have to get there, that we start to recognize the only way to get through this financial crisis is actually to pull closer as communities. You know?
I absolutely agree. But I think you have to start at an individual level first to try and determine
your immediate circle.
What is within your household that you need to start. What are them subscriptions that you don't need and all these things that you might be buying that you can strip away and the stuff that's not important.
Oh, I do that every since, man. I get rid of get rid of Discovery. I get rid of a few things already.
You have to.
Because these crooks that in the mobile phone industry, when your contract run out, they don't tell you.
No, they put you up on the next one up.
They put you on the next one up.
Yeah.
That is actually a thing they do,
Of course,
Yeah,
they don't
you gotta watch out for that.
Yeah.
So now it's just making sure and calling. So I call and make sure and check that out. Man, look, I think I see about 30 pounds a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just looking at everybody's phone in the house, we just make sure that we did that. But unless you look,
Yeah.
Man, as a
These guys don't tell you.
haggle expert, man, I should have known me at 3 now, man. Because I got all 4 of you on the same company, so I want a deal. Give me a deal. Give me a deal, I'm off.
I called and I had them on the phone there long. I was like, so tell me when you're calling. Tell me about this then. Oh, sorry, Mr. Barrow. We can do this for you. I like, no, but that don't make no sense though. I got 4 phones here on this thing with you.
Yeah, exactly. You know the
This tariff here run out every cent. And I looking back my phone and I ain't seen a text when you tell me that this tariff run out.
Congratulations. We can now go to the next.
But you could just go to SIM only. Cause I want them men that need a new phone all the time.
Same here.
I don't
Same here.
check.
Nah.
I drive the
Although
phone
I
till
find
they
the
dead.
strange thing is the phones I have after 2 years, they start getting hot.
You do Apple?
No, I don't have Apple phone. I have
Yeah.
Android.
Because Apple used to slow down their phones.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
And
But
make you
doing
thinking,
it,
oh shoot, this
you
phone,
can guarantee
well,
that
I
everybody
need
else
a new
doing it.
phone.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the other side of this coin too is, man, look, I got 2 teenage boys here. Oh my word, man, these children don't start eating. Honestly, you feel someday like if you living at the supermarket, you really
The
do.
thing though that I don't mind about, not that I don't mind, because obviously depending on where you are in the socioeconomic ladder, these things hit differently. So I would count myself as fortunate where that is concerned. But the thing that I like about here is the ability for you to kind of make them changes.
And you got
And sometimes
choice.
sometimes I wonder if in the Caribbean if it's the same thing. When I think back about my time at home, one or two supermarkets might be cheaper, but by and large, not that much.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because you got big conglomerates controlling a lot of the food that come into the country, as well as the supermarket chains and stuff also. And that is causing an issue. Whereas here you could buy supermarket brand versus the actual, you could buy Sainsbury baked beans or Tesco baked beans
Heinz.
or Lidl. You don't have to buy Heinz.
Yeah.
Right? So you could buy the same. Now, one can argue about the nutritional value when you go down the line, right? Because if you look at some of them things to make them tasty, you see a lot of salt or sugar, depending on which one it is.
Yeah.
To get
It
there's a
is very.
trade-off.
Sometimes you just see there's less stuff as well.
Yeah, and some of the smaller tins.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. But you could kind of figure out
You can work it
again
out.
that all depends on the socio-economic thing on part of the ladder where you are. So at least you could do that. My worry for home, and this is right across the region, is that is not necessarily always the case. And then is the high import bill and everything else that going along with that as well. So yeah, that's a worrying thing.
Yeah, we've backed ourselves in a bit of a corner there because we've kind of restrict choice and we've let the market kind of accelerate prices and people don't really have a lot of choice available when it comes to a mobile phone or a supermarket. And people need to be able to live their lives with choices available to them. So everything in really forcing them down the line, it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I just feel as though with our leaders and the noises they're making about food, this is something that they should have solved a long time ago and stop kind of turning it into this headline thing every time they get together about food security and transportation across. Solve the problem and do the work.
Do it. You only need a summit to do it.
Yeah, I guess the other
go ahead.
No, just saying the other on that food topic, the other direction is empowering and giving incentive to grow your own food as well.
There's that too.
It would be another aspect of that. There's the transportation of food, but if you can have some sort of incentive and empowerment for growing your own food and eating it, I think there's something in that. Going back to some good hard food.
Hard food, man. There's a lot that you can do. I mean, I know people might say that this wrong, but even things like, as you say, in the community where people might have, sheep or might have goat or might have pork and that kind of stuff. Again, speaking predominantly for Barbados, I don't know about the other Caribbean islands, but the ability to, kill and sell them in the village and stuff, a lot of that has been removed. You got to take it to
years
abattoir.
ago. Yeah.
You got to go somewhere now, pay a fee, do this, do that, all that kind of stuff, just increasing the cost of stuff,
Yeah.
So there's some stuff that you could give some leniency to help people within the community take care of the community and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess that has to be balanced with because some of that centralization came with hygiene.
I saw that, Andrew.
And having that sort of having those sort of provisions in place. So it'd be looking at those aspects as well. Not forgetting why, because sometimes we forget why things have been done, and then we revert them, and then have to learn those lessons all over again.
Recreate the same problem that we were trying to solve previously.
Yeah.
You following that this baby shortage thing here?
I saw that. I saw that in the US. That's a hard one. Because then along with that come in some very silly conversations on how people speak to women as well, as if like, was your problem breast milk is the best milk, without recognizing some of the issues and different things that happen there where that is concerned with women and things. So the conversation turned a little bit sour in the US where that one is concerned. But yeah, I saw that. I saw that issue.
I know that you've been a proponent for a long time that we should long have had a manufacturing industry around this. Every sense in the Caribbean, man.
But again,
every sense.
This stuff is not that hard. Like I tell.
So you think this one is literally low hanging fruit?
Literally.
Man, we
Pick
can
it
do that
and crush it.
and bottle it and get it out there, man.
Yeah.
It is. I don't like to reduce things to being something so simple.
Too
but
simplistic.
but it is that simple, right? And it has a knock-on effect on the agriculture industry, because there's nothing regarding food and what have you. There's no industry or business rises where there's not a need. One of the things that is killing the agriculture industry across the Caribbean, as well as things like baby food and what have you, is that we import it all.
Yeah.
So the need is already being fulfilled because they're on the supermarket shelf
Yeah,
coming from
enough
somewhere
demand.
else.
Demand is booming.
Yeah, and the supply is too, because it's 6 billion worth of supply is there with the imports. The only way that you're gonna get the demand for the farmers, which help them produce, is if you incentivize and then you create the market. And in some ways, and how you're gonna create this market for the Caribbean is to stop import certain things.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're gonna create it.
That is
And baby food to me is one. I know formula, because that's the milk, they powder milk and stuff. Although I'm sure we could create that too across the region. I remember the days where Pine Hill Dairy, the farmers and stuff had to chew enough milk. You know, so there's a way that you can do this stuff. Some of this stuff just is not that hard. It's just not that hard. You know, St. Vincent, St. Lucia stuff would tell you the open market, the price for bananas is just too little. They can't do anything with it. They're dumping some of their bananas because people are going to get it from Chiquita and thing down in Brazil and that kind of stuff. My thing is, just stop letting people import it from them places. And then you create your baby formula stuff and baby manufacturing, baby food. And then that's where you get your stuff from your own internal industry. You know, we was this? What did we say?
Yeah, that
Things
we
for US
still have
are
this.
better.
Yeah. Once it comes from outside, it better.
This is very true.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily subscribe to that at all, but that is very true. But
that's
anyway,
that's the emotion in the community.
yeah.
I saw somebody ask a question earlier there about monkeypox and whether we've been following
Monkeypox.
that.
Listen, this thing more dangerous than people talking about. You know, there's something in this. You know,
It feel a little bit like when you first started to hear about COVID.
yeah, there's something in this that is being underplayed, but they give you just enough that when it really hit,
Don't
they say,
panic people yet.
But
We
did
were
tell you
talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
We did tell you about it. We told you this was an issue. And I make sure I was talking about this, and they're like, man, they got something in this, you know. They got something going on here, man. But as yet, they're not telling you what's the issue. But I ain't sure. Because then I don't understand how they're talking about it either. Because they say it's done, transmitted through physical contact and what have you.
Close
but
contact,
then
yeah.
somehow they also linked it to the gay community and what have you, which didn't seem right to me, because to me, you kind of vilify a whole community.
Yeah.
But you say it's close contact. So close contact is close contact.
Could be anybody.
Irrespective of you, you know? And I like, so what's the that's what make me say there's something here going on that they're not saying.
Yeah, there is.
There's something here going on that you're not saying. Because to me, you point a finger at an entire community on something that is transmitted via close contact. And as you say, through sexual contact as well. But sexual contact is anything, you know, heterosexual, what have you. So what you pointing at this one particular group of people? It don't make any sense.
Yeah. It just make you feel as though, you know, given if you look at people's behaviors now post-COVID, where there's a real coming down of and relaxation now. You know, you see very limited mask wearing. I was sitting down in the stadium yesterday at the Diamond League, and I had a fella next to me sneezing, and a couple of people behind me coughing. It was like, yo. and this ain't just no little sneeze, lady. You know, you can this song like if this was COVID, that I'll be out there in no time, right? But there is a little bit of a relaxation in the community now around this whole pandemic stuff, and it almost feels as though there has to be a bit of a managing of the message as this monkeypox is emerging, so that you don't freak the population out, but something is happening.
Something brewing there, man. And
Something is happening.
And they're beginning to count cases too.
Yeah.
I noticed. Once you start counting cases, something wrong, man.
Yeah.
Something going on that you're not saying. So I don't know. I see Dr. Lord said deja vu, spread more in rodents than in monkeys. Maybe Dr. Lord, you need to give us a little rundown on what this
what it is.
monkeypox thing is, and how dangerous or it is, or if it's not. Because in one hand they're telling us, hey, yeah, it just caused some itchiness and discomfort.
Yeah, but it can get lesions on the skin.
Lesions
And
on
no,
the skin
that
and
is,
stuff, right?
that's a game changer when it comes to people's behaviors in community if it then start to manifest itself more widely.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what's happening there. On a completely different note, y'all been following this Amber Heard and Johnny Depp thing?
Oh yes, yeah.
No, I gotta admit, normally I won't follow these kind of things, but I find this one a little fascinating. So every now and then I take a little peek and see what's going on and that kind of stuff. And it's quite interesting, actually. I saw an article in The Guardian today referring to her as an imperfect, what is it? Well, I can't remember the word they call it, but imperfect something or the other. But they're basically saying that, the Me Too movement is in danger because people will not believe, imperfect victims. And, but I like, whoa, that's a stretch.
Incredible.
That's a stretch given everything that's come out in this case, simply referring to it as her as an imperfect victim.
Wow.
I like, come on, man, that's a stretch. But to link it to Me Too and then say it's in danger and what have you, I was like, whoa, really? You're going? It's in The Guardian. I got to read it. But it's interesting though. It made me think. But anyway, y'all been following it?
I dip. I like you. I dip in and out of it because I find the narrative around him and her to be kind of curious, and the way that he's being treated and the way that they reported on her. So I just not
Like
following it completely, but
scandal, Angela, scandal. I have no clue. I don't know all the facts. Let's wait and see.
Pirates of the
Exactly. But it's just curious to me. I just find the way that she's being treated by the media and the way that he's being treated. There's a real disparity between the two, and it leaves a lot of questions open there. Whether you believe what you're hearing or what you're reading around what happens when men are victims of domestic abuse and all of that narrative associated with it. It's really intriguing. So I guess you gotta wait and see how it can fall. But I from that angle, I find it really curious.
So interestingly enough, obviously Johnny Depp a year or so ago sued the Daily Mail here in the UK for defamation, saying that, or libel, can't remember which one it was, I guess 22. But he sued them saying because they relayed her story and called him a wife beater and what have you, and he lost that case. But it's interesting because the way how the media reported that, when obviously the case was done behind closed doors and then reported in the court, they report on it. But it was really interesting how they reported it, because to me, they really reported on it really going really hard against him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was very tainted. Whether it was the media defending itself, because you can argue, yes, he was going against the Daily Mail. Much of we might not like the Daily Mail, but the rest of the media can defend itself, because if them get sued, they can say, oh, he can sue all of we, so let me make he look bad. I ain't saying that that's what the case was, but that's how it come across to me anyway. And I think that's how a lot of people treated him as well. Interesting now, though, know that this is a live feed, no filter from the media. Bring out everything, let people hear for themselves what was really going on here in this relationship. Complete 180.
360.
360, whatever one to miss. Complete 360 in public opinion. From a legal perspective, I don't think he can win the case still anyway. But I don't think he intended to win the case. I think his view was, no, I want this to be public because I want people to hear that this wasn't me. And this is thing, this is alleged. I think that's just his view. This was not me just abusing a woman. This was a mutual toxic relationship in which case we were kind of relatively abusive towards each other verbally, sometimes physically. A lot of it was self-defense, and this happened and he lost a finger and get hit in the head with be it beans or whatever it is, and all kind of stuff.
But it
And
was
I think
both
that
of us.
it was both of us. Whereas prior to this case, it was very much as if this man held this young lady captive,
Yeah.
you know, but it was a mutually toxic relationship.
Yeah.
No, that is not me saying that Johnny Depp didn't hit this lady,
Yeah.
Amber Heard, and vice versa. That's not me saying that. But it made me think, because I did jury duty a few years back. I think I told you about I was in a murder trial, and a couple of times, you know, at the end of the case, that I read some newspaper reports about the case, and I remember looking and reading this stuff and going, well, these people was in the same room as me. Because the way how they wrote this thing, it was in nowhere near a true representation of what was happening inside the courtroom.
Yeah.
Nowhere
Okay.
near
Yeah.
a true representation. And it was half the story, one side of the story. Obviously, they wanted to paint the guy as this murderer and this and that and next and the third. But if you listen to the whole case, you would know it was a lot more complex than that. Now,
Yeah.
they would argue, hey, we only got a few inches in the newspaper that we could talk to. But when you saw this story now, it made me think, man, more cases should be out like this so you could just hear, man.
But that's
And let
because
people be your own just because a lot of people getting judged by the public wrongfully so.
yeah, and because particularly here with the British press and the media, you always have to put on a very critical lens when you are reading or hearing anything from the sources, because a lot of time there's always some ulterior motive that they're trying to shake down or trying to protect, and irrespective of what it is you're reading, you got to really try and put on a critical lens over it to try and figure out, okay, so what exactly is it they're trying to shift opinion on, or who exactly is it they're trying to protect? It always leads you to feel as though these stories are reported in a way that you can't really figure out what's going on here, because it kind of slanted one way or the other, and it's happened all the time.
No, I agree. And I think that's the one thing that I appreciated happening with this case, because then even sometimes when you go read newspaper reports, it's almost as if newspapers not too sure how to deal with it, because the people that are interested actually listening to the whole thing themselves.
Yeah, the information is already out there.
The information already out there, as opposed to when it was the case here in the UK, when it was all done behind closed doors, the media was able to shape public opinion in that case. And as you watch the case now, you're wondering, well, if all this come out in the case in the UK, how he in that case still? And I know there's a lot of legalities and stuff that come into it, because something might tell layman, it might seem a slam dunk, but when you get instructed about the law, it's a completely different thing.
It's an interesting one to go back around the circle of what we were talking about in terms of how we view our own judicial and court system in the Caribbean. Because I think I say a lawyer or somebody got locked up there in Barbados at once. Yet again, can't pay somebody money, which is a fairly regular thing.
Very common thing.
That happens all the time, and
No
you just feel as though a lot of times these things are so closed up, and we don't have any authentic insight into what is going on in our courts or how decisions are being made. You just know, but anecdotally, people in the community just know, man, you've been thieving things from people for years now, or that body there's a crook, but they're not being held to account, and it's a real shame. But I think I admire the way that some mature democracies are holding these sessions in court open, so that people can see and follow the process and make their own judgments and not have to wait on some middle person to drive their opinion depending on what their agenda is. And I would love to see the Caribbean get to a place where we get a lot more mature around our judiciary. Honestly, it would help us with our decisions. It really would.
I agree. I think so. See Angela saying we're dissing y'all, Angela.
Oh, shoot. No, here's the thing though. For me, the question is always, what happens when it's at scale, right? So this is one, going back to the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. There's one particular case which is done at that level. and therefore we're able to make some sort of judgment on the role of media or the changing role of media in a space where information is just open source, end-to-end information. We're also able to make a judgment call on the experience as an information consumer versus being a third-party consumer where we have to wait for a middle reporter to condense that information and form a story around it and present it to you. So you're not getting the information, you're getting the story. But what happens when this, how does that scale? What if every case was like that? How would you would still have to sort of zoom into cases of interest or rely on some sort of third party for condensing and pulling together and correlating and finding insight.
Yeah, that gonna always happen, and you're never gonna report, or you're never gonna have every single case open.
Yeah.
But what you do when you make some open is that you make those responsible for reporting, you hold them to account, because now you can see how people are reacting when they can see things for themselves. So it's not about making every case open to everybody at all times, but it's that when you do it sometimes, you actually hold the people then who are reporting on cases, you hold them to account. You kind of, though they then know that there's a mature audience listening and reading and can perhaps deduce based on the fact that they've been following other cases at some point in time that expect more from me when I report. And that's the thing that we got to look at.
It is a challenging one because that is going through that whole disinformation. Well, we're still going through that disinformation era, and falsified information, where we start to see a few companies rise up who are fact checkers, right?
Yeah.
And and the challenge
based on your outlook.
Exactly. The
Sometimes.
challenge of a fact checker is the first thing they have to do is to establish credibility and trust with people who use them as a service.
Yes.
And again, it just comes down to capacity, scale, and who you choose to trust as a provider of information.
But I think in if you start with our small economies, it is incremental, and you have to set thresholds. So look, everything doesn't have to be live streamed through a court, because everything is not in, the public don't really need to hear. But there should be a threshold at which, actually, because of the significance of that meets the threshold.
So set some parameters
You
around.
exactly. You set some parameters around what will meet that threshold for that level of public discourse and involvement. And funny enough, that can actually act as a disincentive to people, strange enough, because I don't want my stuff exposed in that way. So in designing it that way, you then suddenly start to introduce a different type of behaviors. But you do it incrementally, and you set some thresholds, and you try to see if this is a change that will be needed. But I laud, mature economies that are doing it, because I think it is something we could do with examining a lot closer in the Caribbean, honestly.
I think so too, and I think we talk about whether or not you can do it at scale, but I think in this era of technology, there's a lot you can do at scale that you probably couldn't even do 5-10 years ago. I think there's a lot you can do now, especially after this COVID period. I mean, for instance, look, the three of us, they are doing this here right now. And so there's a lot that people can do to help filter and disseminate information, as well as challenge and hold robust discussions about things at a certain level. And people at the end of the day, people are going to be the arbiters to tell you, whether or not you're at a certain standard that they expect or not. That's the thing, But I think there are people out there who can just get together and do things to a certain extent as well, and hold certain people to account too. So that's interesting. But that was my little thing there, watching that case. It's quite interesting to watch.
You should be watching Agatha Christie, man. That's
Oh, Agatha Christie. I got admit, but that's a classic case actually.
I know.
Because one is being held behind closed doors, but I think Agatha Christie should be being held in the open too.
That is some drama there, I tell you.
Yeah.
And embarrass
the viewing
all of
figures
them.
will be over the moon for that one. I can tell you.
Exactly. For those who don't know who Agatha Christie is, that is two footballers' wives here. We call them wives, wives and girlfriends.
Girlfriends.
So Agatha Christie is a case where one of them seemingly was leaking, well, allegedly was leaking information about the other to the press and to the tabloids and being paid for it. And the other one hold a bit of a sting operation and shut down their Instagram account to only one person and put information on it, and then that information turned up in the press. So that person deduced, and that was Wayne Rooney's wife, former English football captain, Colleen Rooney. She deduced that Jamie Vardy's wife was the person who be leaking stories all along.
It was Rebecca Vardy's account.
Rebecca, exactly. It was Rebecca Vardy. So now Rebecca Vardy is suing for libel, and now that case is in the court, but it's behind closed doors. However, to my point on the media's role, Wayne Rooney is pretty much enjoys godlike status in England, not United Kingdom, in England. So one has to wonder, how is the media actually reporting this story? Because are you doing it in favor of Wayne Rooney's wife and then making the other person look
The villain.
like a villain? So it's shaping public opinion. That particular case I wish was open, because I think everybody want embarrassing is such an ignorant case that going on at the moment.
Yeah.
I think embarrass everybody and let everybody hear all the ignorance and that y'all be carrying on with because you got too much time on your hand.
Absolutely.
But that's the difference there. But I haven't really been following that one, although I must admit it's interesting reading.
Of course. On a slightly different note, I don't know if you picked up this week that Mr. Holness is being asked now for a timeline for
For Republic?
a timeline for Republic in Jamaica.
Okay.
So we are waiting with bated breath to see when Mr. Holness is going to come forward with this plan for moving Jamaica towards being a republic. He's made all the song and dance, so he's now being asked for a timeline.
The guy has no plan. Listen, y'all know how I feel about all this. The guy is, in my opinion, from a Caribbean perspective, the worst prime minister that Jamaica had. Pretty much.
Wow.
In my opinion. That's my opinion. But that was all grandstanding, in my opinion. Just riding on the wave of obviously Barbados becoming a republic and what have you. He's just grandstanding. He has no plan. It'd be good if he does have one.
So he had no timeline?
No, he ain't got a timeline, man. He just talking.
Wow.
He ain't got a timeline, man. He just pick a moment when all the press was on Jamaica, make a grandstand, get a little cheer from the crowd, and then go on about his business.
And retreat.
He ain't got a timeline. He ain't got a timeline.
People
Trust
are holding him to account now, waiting to see what next.
Yeah, but you notice he hasn't responded.
No, of course not.
But you know what he can respond with? These things take time.
Aye. Yes. These things take time.
That's what
true.
he can respond with. He ain't really got nine. He ain't got nine there, man. But we'll see. We'll see. So loads of stuff been happening across the region that I've been paying attention to. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, man. I think we're in a really difficult place at the moment, so we gotta keep across it and keep across what's going on in the region and just make sure we're if nobody's going to ask the questions, you can be certain that we here in the living room will.
Indeed.
We absolutely have to.
Yeah, I think so. I am really one that really hope that across the region people grab hold of the technology that exists today, because as I say, I think the one legacy of or one of the legacies of this whole COVID period is really the use of podcasting, shows like ours, the use of the technology and what have you. And I hope people recognize you don't need to wait for a TV program. It's not that expensive to get together and talk, get together and probe, ask questions, demand more from those who set policies and what have you. So I really hope that across the region, and especially in Barbados as well. And I saw Angela talking about the Computer Misuse Act and all kinds of stuff. Angela, I don't want to say that is nonsense, because I know it's not nonsense. but it's just something that people use quite a lot in the region to hold over people's heads. To be honest with you, it is really a way to frighten people from expressing what should be their right, and that is free speech. So the moment you say anything, oh, Computer Misuse Act, when actually, really and truly, it shouldn't be. In a real mature democracy that we like to tell ourselves that we are, that shouldn't be an issue. I should be able to say what I want to say. I ain't talking about labeling people or defaming people. I'm talking about I should be able to question, probe, and if I find evidence of X, to bring it forward and show as well. But
yeah, and without feeling the fear of victimization or that my family will be victimized, because I think that is one of the underlying factors as to why people are not open and probing and holding our leaders to account, because there's always this fear of the reprisal. And that for me has been around for as long as I've been alive, and as long as that remains, I feel we will never fulfill our true potential as a region, because our people are too fearful to ask the questions about the things that need probing and interrogating.
Indeed. I remember there was a young fella in a car that used to ask some questions in the car and stuff on mornings or what have you. I think he met the Prime Minister. I can't remember his name. But he used to just probe certain things going on in the country on his Facebook or Instagram or whatever channel. I wonder what become of him, because I haven't seen anything from him recently.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything.
Probably got shut down, or probably got told to cease and desist. which the fight.
No, not Jeremy Stevens. I don't think nobody could shut up Jeremy Stevens.
Somebody has some Jerry's.
Jeremy's a good boy. Jeremy's a friend in the show.
Friend of the living room.
Joking.
Friend of the living room.
But and I say that in jest, but also as a good thing. Nobody should be able to shut up Jeremy from speaking.
No.
No, there was another younger fella. I can't remember his name, going straight from me. He used to be sitting in his car. He asked a lot of questions about the price of fuel and the price and different things that was happening. And then he had an Instagram channel. And I recall he was even called out, I believe, by the Prime Minister, saying she was willing to meet with him. But, you know when that phrase come up, what that really mean. And then soon later, you don't really hear about it no more.
Yep.
I haven't seen anything recent. I can research it and see. It just came to mind there just now, but the name gone from me. That's all.
I mean, just be busy with other things.
You think so? No,
I know.
I think the fear. Come in. I think the fear come in. I think
somebody had a word.
I think so, and that's the case a lot in Barbados. That's the case a lot.
Okay.
But that's interesting. But anyway, look, guys, we were just chilling out today, having a chat. Thanks for your comments and thanks for sticking with us here for the last hour and a half or so. Just one thing I wanted to say is condolences to friend of the show, Dr. Lord. His mum passed away, but condolences, Dr. Lord. We're here with you, praying for you and your family during this period and during this time. But guys, thanks for sticking with us for the last hour and a half. It's been a pleasure having a chat. Probably going to take a little bit of a break. Don't get vexed. Just a short break. We going to be back. Don't worry about it. We will definitely be back. But until we'll let you know. So stay on the page and you'll see. But we probably take a couple of weeks break. We got Jubilee weekend coming up here as the guys celebrate the coin and what have you. So we're gonna do that. But we're gonna have some more good conversation. We're planning some good shows coming up over the next couple of weeks as well. We think those will be great. If you haven't already, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you do your social media. West Indians Global West Indians. You'll find us there. Follow us there, like the page, and you'll be the first to get everything that we talk about. And you will all watch all of our other shows as well. There's some really interesting shows, especially the last few weeks. We had some really interesting shows and some really interesting topics as well. So feel free to go watch those and to hit share, comment. We'll try to comment as well if you comment. But guys, thanks for being with us for the past hour and a half. Until next time.
Bye.